Yo, Zenith Nation, welcome back to Catch The Zenith, the podcast where I document my journey to get better in life and business. Today we've got another episode of Zenith Reflections, where I comment on some of my most interesting posts from the week on X, formerly known as Twitter. And by the way, if you're new here to this podcast, I'm Nicola, I'm an entrepreneur and master student. So please share and enjoy, and let's jump right into it. The first post I want to discuss from X is read a book until you can teach the concepts to someone else. So I'm somebody who really loves reading. I currently read about 30 to 60, sometimes even 2 hours per day, because it teaches me how to think, it teaches me how to improve my life, how to improve in business. And one thing I needed to understand on this reading journey was that reading for the sake of just reading is not really helpful if you want to change your life. However, once I started to really put the book into my DNA, to ingrain it into my DNA, then I really started to change. Let me explain. So I give you a specific example. I read the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Great book when it comes to success in life and business, so professional, career-wise, but also in your personal life. And those 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, when I first read the book, I forgot quite a lot of concepts I read. I, for instance, didn't remember everything when it comes to I think the third habit was first things first. I didn't remember every single thing, or let's say everything, or the key things, And then I decided to record a podcast episode where I summarized the entire book. So every single habit of that book he outlined, I summarize in a pretty extensive podcast episode. So, and while preparing for that podcast episode, obviously, I needed to go again through every single chapter of the book and mark some important things, to write or to take some quotes, put it into my script, or rereading certain passages of the book that I really understand it. And it really helped me to, put it into my mind that I can retain it after I've recorded the episode. And the cool thing is then, certain things you don't know yet how to articulate that you have read, but recording a podcast episode or writing a newsletter or just for yourself reflecting on the concepts or the book you are reading right now is so powerful because you need to think about it and you test yourself and see if you have truly understand it. And there's also this cool technique called the Feynman technique, which states something like that if you can't explain something to a child, you haven't truthfully or really understood it. And by recording an episode or writing or reflecting upon a book, try to summarize it in your own words, you can really make sure that you have understood the things and that you can actually remember what you've read. Because if you can't remember the concepts, obviously changing your life will be much harder. However, if you have all the knowledge of a particular book at your disposal, it's, I think, way more effective in life, because then you know exactly, this book recommended this, so I can apply that now in this life situation. And imagine, if you really put, for instance, Atomic Habits into your DNA, really, really apply every single strategy of the book, I'm pretty sure you will be you will be most likely really consistent, very consistent with your habits. And I found that really powerful. And there's a cool quote of another Ravi Kant. He said something like, "I would rather read the best 100 books over and over again until I absorb them rather than reading every single book out there." And that's true. Or at least for me, it's true. I read thus far this year, first Man's Search for Meaning. I started that at the end of last year, finished it this year. Then I reread also $100 Million Leads by Alex Hormozi, a book about how to get people interested in the stuff you sell, basically. And then I started Rational Optimist, which was a new book. However, I stopped that because I think it's a great read, but at the current moment in my life, it's not the best fit. Maybe I will come back to it later. And right now I'm rereading 12 Rules for Life by Jordan B. Peterson. So already a third book basically, which I'm rereading. And I think this is a really cool tactic because I forget so much things. Like if I read the book once, most likely if I haven't summarized it, I forgot maybe 80% of the content of the book. So I really want to make sure I have everything in my head. And the cool thing is, if you reread certain books maybe once a year, like Man's Search for Meaning is a great example, or 12 Rules for Life, like in my case also right now, then you read this book from a different angle, and you maybe understand certain things, right? Finally you understand certain things, or you think about, oh, when I read it the first time, that wasn't entirely, like, I didn't understand that one, but now I can understand it better, this concept, because I had an experience in the past about XYZ. And so every single time when you read a book, you read it from a different angle, and you have maybe some new ideas that emerge out of that. So long story short, the point I wanted to make is, like, reading books just for the sake of reading, if we have the ambitions to change our life based on reading non-fiction self-improvement books, the point is then it's really powerful if you make sure that you have understood it and that you can retain the knowledge. But you can do that by testing yourself, or by teaching the concepts to yourself, testing yourself with the Feynman technique, for instance. Or on the flip side, you can start a newsletter. It's pretty simple, yeah? Go on substack.com and start a newsletter, or ConvertKit, or start a podcast, whatever, and use that as a reflection tool like I'm doing right now, or a summarizing tool, yeah? So that's one thing. And then obviously rereading the best books over and over again until you have truly everything in your DNA. I'm doing that. I really love doing that. So yeah, I hope that helps. Next one. The fastest way to feel better, just smile, no reason needed. So let me quickly explain, or share with you a quick story. I did an internship in 2021 to 2022. It was like roughly a little bit more than a year. I was like doing executive project management, marketing, and HR stuff. It was pretty cool. It was like my own company within the company. And something I've done when I ended my workday was that when I walked down the stairs of this larger building and I went out, closed the main door, or a little bit before, I can't remember, I think, yeah, it doesn't matter. But what I basically have done is I smiled, because I was like, I just ended the workday and it was a good feeling. Like I just smiled without a particular big reason. Nobody was like telling a joke or something like that, obviously. I just was laughing because I wanted. And what ended up happening is that I was feeling so good in that moment. And I'm doing that also throughout the day sometimes, just smile without any reason, because this then has like an effect on your overall mood. And you can make this test for yourself, or at least that's how I learned it, how effective it is. If you smile without a reason, like right now, I'm smiling, I'm feeling pretty good, you know. However, if I don't smile and I'm looking angry, I feel angry, you know. And you can obviously see that in other people. If they smile or don't smile, you most likely will know a little bit more about their mood. Not always, but in some cases. But I think this is really powerful for ourselves to feel in the moment pretty fast better. And it's like a hack, an efficiency hack, how to feel better in the moment without any big effort. Just smiling without any reason. And this overarching concept here, which is like, if you smile, you feel better, or if you don't smile, maybe you're feeling not so well. The same is true for your posture, or that's what I experienced. Jordan Peterson has this rule called, that's rule number 1, stand up straight with your shoulders back. In other words, like, you have a good posture. When you're walking, on the street, and you have a nice posture, it communicates something to others, but I would say even more importantly, to yourself, to your brain basically. You see yourself maybe as a competent human being, as someone who is maybe reliable or whatever, but you feel pretty good if you walk with a straight posture throughout life. And it's the same like when you sit at a table and you have like a rounded back. You like your shoulders are a little bit together and you look pretty weak. That communicates, that is corresponding basically with your brain. That's what, at least how it's happening in my life. However, when I stand up straight or I sit then like with a straight posture, I feel way better. And I think people around you also perceive it as something nice. They think, oh yeah, hey, this guy is taking care of his posture, and maybe I should also not sit like a with a rounded back, you know. So the same concept between like you have like a, you smile and then you feel better. The same applies to your posture. You have a nice posture, you stand up straight, as opposed to with a rounded back, and you feel better. And you see that because in people usually who, yeah, don't value or that's what I observed in my life, people who see themselves maybe as deficient, not really competent, not really capable of anything, maybe they are depressed or whatever, which is pretty hard, they usually also have a different posture as opposed to people who are high in energy, high in positivity, high in competence. They usually have a little bit of different posture. They walk up straight with their shoulders back. I remember, by the way, I once interviewed my former boss, Stefan Baer. He's the COO of Stadler US. Stadler is a train manufacturer. I did there an internship. It was in the US in Salt Lake City. And when I had my desk, like obviously in the office, and sometimes, actually almost every day, he crossed by because he had his office near my desk, and he was always walking quite fast and with a nice posture, like he was standing up straight with the shoulders back, and that communicated something like it was like it communicated competence and someone who is definitely worth being the COO, if that makes any sense. I hope I found the right word in English, but you get what I'm saying. It was just like, hey, this most likely this person is competent, yeah. And it doesn't necessarily mean, in his case, he was highly competent. I wouldn't say that everybody's competent just because they have a nice posture, but I think to yourself and also to other people it communicates something. And especially if you feel bad right now, smiling and sitting with a nice posture or standing up straight, that's a quite a fast hack to make you feel better, I believe. And that is just my experience and what worked for me. And maybe it will work for you as well. Yo, Zenith Nation, quick break. Each Sunday I write a free newsletter called Zenith Sunday. In it, I share simple lessons I learn about doing better work and living a better life. It's short, easy to read, and costs nothing. So if you would like a little boost each week, sign up below. And now, back to the show. Next one. This is a quote by Leila Hormozi, the CEO of acquisition.com. She's the wife of Alex Hormozi, the entrepreneur. She said something like, action creates experience. Experience builds competence. Competence leads to confidence. The more action you can take in your life, the more confident you will become. So let me take that apart and go a little bit into the details here. Action creates experience. Obviously, if you do, let's say, if you have a lot of sales calls, you get experience. Yeah, you have the experience of how to deal with objections, for instance, in the sales call. Once you have this experience, then you certainly learn how to overcome, for example, those obstacles. So you become competent in selling and by overcoming obstacles within the sales call. And once you are competent, you become more and more confident because you do it more and more times and most likely successfully. And why I'm bringing that up, taking action is something so powerful. Because, you know, nowadays, a lot of people talk about this notion of you must work smart, not hard. And yeah, that's right. However, only after a certain period of time. Like, let me explain. Like, if you start a business and you don't know what you're doing, like in my case, back in 2022, when I started my second business, I didn't really know what I was doing. However, I had a good mentor, a good coaching program, which helped me to learn pretty fast. But what I needed to do is to work pretty darn hard, 12, 14 hours every single day, and I became then slightly better. I became smarter. I developed strategies how to work more efficiently. And then after this hard period, I started to create systems to work more efficiently. So that sounds a little bit vague. Let me explain it with a specific example. I had, within the second business I did, this was like a coaching program for adults, for high performers with ADHD. I helped them to become more productive, to get more things done, basically. And within that coaching program, I had like 3 pillars. I had the videos, the course, like videos to watch. Then I had a coaching community. So all my clients were in a community. And then I had one-on-one coachings and group coaching calls. Like those 3 pillars, basically the course, community, and coaching. And basically, over time, the more clients I had, the more tasks was on my plate. And a lot of those tasks, like for instance, managing the community, making sure that everybody gets an answer, or that I post community posts, that was pretty repetitive. I needed to do that every single day, also to check in with my clients, to hold them accountable. And what I then did, after working pretty hard and figure everything out, what I'm doing need to do on a daily basis, I translated that into a standard operating procedure. Is a fancy word for simply a list of things you do on a daily basis. And then I created that list for each part of my product, which I delivered within my coaching program. I had all those different things I need to do on a daily basis. Yeah, first I need to check in with my active clients. Send them, for instance, on Monday, a happy Monday message, then send them a pre-recorded video to them, personalized, for instance, or a community video as a motivational video on Monday. Then I make sure that I answer every single comment within the community, and so on and so forth. And I created a long list, and then what I simply needed to do is execute that list every single day. And I didn't need to think that much, because now, instead of having everything in my brain stored, it was in a Google Doc, and I could simply go through, execute everything. It was way more efficient. And that's exactly an example of first working hard, and then you work smart, and that means you start to implement systems. And that's everywhere. In the beginning, you don't know what you're doing. Like, it's the same with, I'll give you a story. When I started my bachelor's degree, first semester, I didn't really know how to learn, how to work hard, how to learn hard, basically. Second semester, I became better. I educated myself with videos of Ali Abdaal, or maybe it was in the summer of that. I can't remember exactly. But you get the gist. Basically, what I've done is, it was like that. Second semester, I worked pretty darn hard, passed all exams and an additional one. And then in summer, I watched a little bit more intensively those videos of Ali Abdaal, how to learn more effective and efficiently. And he talked about active recall and spaced repetitions, like fancy stuff. But basically what it is, you use like flashcards. For instance, Anki is a great application to make sure that you put everything into your brain. So you test yourself. You create like a flashcard. You write a question on the back, on the front, and on the back the answer. And like that you can test yourself. That is active recall. Basically, if you then can test yourself and you can recall the information. And if you do that over a certain period of time, maybe after the first day, then after the third day, then the seventh day, that is then spaced repetition. So you basically interrupt the forgetting curve. And so I learned a lot about that. And then I became smarter when it comes to learning effectively and efficiently. Second semester was just working really hard. And then the third semester, quite frankly, was working even harder because I did more courses at university. However, I knew now how to efficiently get things done, how to approach learning for an exam. Like I need to create, for instance, Anki card, or in that course I need to create a summary that makes more sense there, or in that course I have a lot of math exercise I need to go through, so I need to practice that. It was way easier for me to prioritize what exactly I need to do in order to achieve a good grade, you know. So that's a quick story from my life or my academic journey. So long story short, this is all to say, like, okay, work smart, not hard. I get it. I agree. But I believe first work hard, then work smart. And remember the quote of Leila Hormozi, action creates experience. Then you have the experience. Then you can build competence. And once you have competence, this will then ultimately lead to confidence. And almost, I would say the last one for today, which is X quote or X post by Alex Hormozi. For those of you who don't know him, and I recommend knowing him. He's a really cool guy. He has a lot of great content online. He wrote, "You can beat 99% of people by first preparing the night before, showing up early, leaving only when the job is done right, remembering people's names, following up, improving one thing each time. It's not about being fancy. Doing the basics every time is what makes you advanced." So I really, really love that one, because for a pretty long period, I thought those successful people out there, like those fancy gurus, quote unquote, they are holding back the secrets. They are not really telling me what they are doing on a daily basis to either build a successful business or live a healthy life, whatever. But it was at one point I just realized that, hey, what they are doing is they are always doing the basics. Successful people never don't do the basics. They're just doing more of the basics. And what are basics? For instance, health-wise, basics could be sleeping 8 hours per day every single night at the same bedtimes. Like every single night you go to sleep at 9 p.m. and you wake up, for instance, in 5 a.m. and you sleep 8 hours and at the same time. Or it could be nutrition. You eat a healthy diet 95% of the time. Or it could be like hitting the gym 5 times per week. It's not about being fancy. It's really simple. Simple, but not easy to execute, obviously. But it's easy to know what to do, on a daily basis. The same is when it comes to business, for instance. Just the fact that people who follow up people who respond very, very fast when they get an inquiry, they make more money. I'll give you a specific example. And there are some stats out there, like people who can't tell you the exact stats, but I try to give you the gist. If somebody writes a business, like an inquiry, like, I will want to buy your product, and the business answers within less than 60 seconds or 2 minutes, the chances are way higher that this person becomes a customer of you. And it's pretty hard sometimes, especially if you're alone. I remember when I did a lot of Instagram DMs to get clients. It's just like all day long Instagram DMs to get your clients, especially if you don't have any. You need to let people know about your stuff you have to sell. If you don't do that, you can have the best product and nobody will benefit of it. And you can't improve the product because you don't get any feedback. And the basics was simply like answering pretty fast. And I'm not saying I did it always, but always when I did it, people were pretty impressed. And also follow up with people, meaning like after 2 days, like, hey, how are you? I saw on your Instagram story you did X, Y, Z. How was it? You follow up with people. And there's another one by Alex Hormozi. He said something like, you don't need to have a breakthrough technology to create wealth. Answer the phone, show up on time, respond quickly, do what you said you would do. There's a lot of money to be made giving a shit about customer. There's a lot of money to be made giving a shit about customer. If you want a competitive advantage, try doing the basics first. And why I'm also bringing that up is because sometimes I have the feeling that a lot of people, they are doing everything else but the basics. They are doing like thinking about fancy high performance business strategy, but the basics they are not really doing, you know. But you don't need to be that smart to be successful, I think. Or it's not that what I think. I actually believe that because I experienced it myself. I'll give you another example. When I started this coaching business back in 2022, I got within the first 30 days of having this business my first 3 clients. That was roughly 5.5k in revenue. And I was thinking like, okay, you've never done that before. After the first month, 5.5k, that's okay. That's cool. And then I realized, okay, you don't need to be that smart. If you just work hard, do the daily outreaches, you can make money, you know? And that was a pretty huge relief because I always thought you need to be super, super smart to do that. But it's not at all that. And that's, I would say, this is also kind of interesting because there are a lot of super smart people out there. They are not they they are not doing those basics. They are not doing enough volume of something. I remember this video of Gary Vaynerchuk. I think Hormozy posted it. Somebody said like, and I'm hugely paraphrasing, something like, "Hey, I can't find investors for my business." And then Gary Vaynerchuk, this investor and entrepreneur, said something like, "How many? How many?" And he said like something like, I think 25, like LinkedIn messages he sent to potential investors. And like 25, man, you should do. And then I can't remember what he exactly said, but the gist was do much, much more. Do 100 a day. You know, he did in total, I think 25. That's nothing. You can do within 7 days, 100 outreaches every single day. And maybe after 500 outreaches, you get 1 person or maybe 3 person, and you will book 3 meetings, have a conversation. Maybe you will close 1 person and get them on board as an investor. But it's pretty hard, obviously, and it's easier said than actually then done in practice. But I think a lot of us would be better served if we stop like complaining that something doesn't work and more thinking about increasing the volume we are doing on a day-to-day basis. Like I can tell you, when I started this business, the coaching business, it was during summer and I just had time to do this because it was like semester break of university. I had nothing to do. I just could focus on that. No, it was right after I finished my internship before I started my master's degree. And I could focus solely on that. It was so cool because I just had this, like it was all about high performance, ADHD. That was the main. I learned everything. I read books, podcasts, listened to podcasts, and so on and so forth. And then, obviously, at that time, I could do a lot of outreaches, a lot of DM conversations. I had sales calls, building then the product later, and so on. Because I first delivered my MVP to see if people are actually interested in that. It was like a process first. Getting people on board, see if there's someone willing to pay. Then building the product. I went like dark and delivering the product. I had like a system, or the process was like, I enrolled the people. We had a start date. And then every single week I delivered new videos to watch. We had coaching calls. We had the community and so on. I will not go into details right now. Maybe another point. But yeah, the thing I wanted to make here is I had a lot of time to do outreaches and to focus just on that. And then I started my master's program, and all of a sudden, instead of 12 or 14 hours per day I could dedicate to that business, it was reduced to maybe 4 hours, 5 hours per day, because this master's program was quite intensive, still is. Now I'm almost at the end. I'm writing now my master thesis. And especially if you want to perform well and have good grades. So all of a sudden, like I had maybe 8-9 hours I worked for uni, sometimes more on other days, which is not too much in the end. But I could do more there, but I wanted to maintain the business. So the other 4 to 5 hours, I focused on that. That meant that in the morning, I focused on that, during my lunch breaks often, in the evening. And the point I wanted to make here, long story short, was that when I just had 4 to 5 hours, And what ended up happening, the volume I could do to get new clients was all of a sudden way smaller. It was like, instead of sending out 40, 50 outreaches or 30 outreaches per day, messages per day, I did less sometimes, or even no, because I also needed to post content and I needed to deliver the product, And with that, I'm simply saying volume is really, that's the secret. It's basic, but that's the thing, what you can do to start a business. And of course, Hormozi has an entire book about that. Pretty simple strategies, simple things you can do that are simple, but obviously it requires time. But I think nowadays nobody can say that they don't know what to do. I think we know pretty darn well what to do. But then it comes to, the question that, are we actually doing the things we should do to become successful? So all this to say that basics like preparing the night before, like I have tomorrow in a little less than 24 hours, I have a meeting, and I prepared today 6 hours for that meeting because it's an important one. So I'm preparing the night before or the day before. Showing up early is the same thing. Like if you have a meeting in 5 p.m., be there 30 minutes earlier. Like watch a little bit around, prepare. Maybe I did that always when I had meetings in my internships, like to be the best prepared intern, having printed everything out, having the PowerPoint presentation already on the TV screen and so on. Leaving only when the job is done, right? That's what he said. So not leaving in 5 p.m. just because it's 5 p.m. Maybe you should work an hour later to get it done right. And then remembering people's names, that's quite frankly something I sometimes struggle with, but I try to improve. Following up, that's a great one. That I would say I'm pretty decent at that. Following up, quite I like to do that. And improving one thing each time, like not instead of split testing 10 different things, you split test one single variable and see what ends up happening. Let's say, for instance, if you test 2 different landing pages, the headline of 2 different landing pages. All right, with that said, I hope that helps, guys. Thank you so much for listening, and see you in the next episode. Bye.